Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners, to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. It is a special Tuesday edition of the show. It's essentially our post-game day after podcast that we do. So think of it as like our Monday show, but a little bit different with the Bucs playing on Monday Night Football. We're going to talk about how bad coaching, some by Todd Bowles, some by assistants, have been hurting the Buccaneers during this current skid that they are on. We also just spoke with Todd Bowles via Zoom as well, where he had his press conference. We'll break that down too. And of course, get to super chats and other comments that you, the Pewter people, have. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at PewterReport.com, SR, Scott Reynolds. Scott, it's been a busy day. Trade deadline, busy for all the other teams around the league. The Bucs stayed put, just like you've been saying for quite a while now.
Yeah, we've been really saying it for a couple of weeks now, and it didn't change. Didn't expect it to change. And maybe if the Buccaneers had won 2 out of the last 3, and would be in better position to not only win the NFC South, but maybe do some damage in the playoffs, then I think that you maybe add. But when you are trying to claw your way out of a hole that you've created with bad coaching decisions, bad personnel usage, etc., it's kind of like, we're all guilty of this. Not to say all of us, but I mean, I know I have been. You try to, when you're gambling and you're losing, you throw good money after bad, and it just doesn't work out. You're trying to okay, well, I'm going to make it up here on this bet,
You're chasing it, essentially.
You're chasing it. And that's just not the way to do it. And so, as we said, probably almost about a month ago, we said, if the Buccaneers were to win some of these games, I think it was the Falcons game in Tampa Bay, that's kind of where we said, hey, if they win, then maybe you do it. But if you get swept by the Falcons and then don't, subsequently beat the Ravens or the Chiefs or both, whatever, then it's almost a little bit like a lost cause. It's not like the front office is waving the white flag. There's still plenty of games to play, but what they're saying is, in not so many words, Matt, is you coached your way into this hole. You're gonna have to coach your way out of it. We're not going to throw you a lifeline and give you a player or two to help out when the problem really isn't the players so much as it is the coaching. And I wrote about this in my SR's Fab 5, and this is what I believe. This is not anybody else talking, but me. But I'll drop it in the chat. This defensive coaching staff, there's some real fundamental problems with it. And they're older guys. They've been here a long time. You have to wonder sometimes, is there fatigue, right? Where you keep hearing the same voices, the same messages, and it kind of wears out, right? I know some of you guys are NBA fans, even like someone like Pat Riley with the Lakers, Showtime, all that success, all those titles. At some point in time, his message just kind of got lost and drowned out and all of that, and he had to move on. And same with John Gruden in Tampa, won a lot of games, 3 division championships and a Super Bowl. His message just kind of got worn out. And I just wonder if that's the case with some of these defensive coaches. And I'm not just talking about Todd Bowles. I'm talking about some of these assistant coaches. I have to believe that Kalijah Kancey is better than he's showing. I have to believe that Yaya Diaby is better than he's showing.
Yeah.
And I think some of these assistant coaches, they're not coaching these guys to reach their full potential. Some of them, maybe Logan Hall, maybe Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. I don't say they're lost causes, but maybe they're just like players, But
sometimes you just need a fresh set of paint on something. And I think we're seeing that on the offensive side with Liam Coen in there, with Kevin Carberry along the offensive line. And I don't know, maybe I'm looking too much into this, but typically, the Bucs have had some really good defenses going back to really when Todd Bowles got there. Typically, when you have consistently a good defense, you lose some of those assistant coaches because they go on and get elevated to bigger roles. And we saw that really only one coach, and that was Mike
Caldwell.
That was Mike Caldwell becoming the defensive coordinator of the Jacksonville Jaguars that season after the Bucs won the Super Bowl. But outside of that, all of the coaches have pretty much stayed put. And
Yeah.
it does make you wonder a little bit, like, how come some of these guys haven't gotten new opportunities? I feel like Larry Foote maybe would be one of them, considering he's kind of a younger guy and now he's
Yeah.
coached different places. But the way that, or positions, I should say, but
Yeah.
now with how the group is looking this year, especially at inside linebacker,
Yeah.
maybe they're just kind of holding on now. But it's clear that something needs to be done, whether it's the coaches. Bowles tried doing something last night with finally platooning at inside linebacker. They limited KJ Britt a lot more. Britt
Yeah.
ended up playing 46 snaps, 46 out of 85. So that was 54%. JJ Russell got in for 31 snaps, which was 36%.
Yeah.
So they at least tried to make an adjustment there. It helped a little bit, I would say, but not overall to the outcome that they wanted. And it goes back to what we talked about yesterday. Todd has faith in his guys, and you have to have some vote of confidence. But I mean, we just saw this same scenario, 3 weeks ago against Atlanta in Atlanta, where you're trusting your defense to make a stop and do something, and they didn't. And they lost in overtime, and the offense, who's been the strength of the team this year, is hung out to dry, not being able to go and win the game.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And you have to wonder too, right? Todd Bowles has been loyal to a fault to some of his guys. We've seen him very slow to make personnel changes. And the problem is if Todd Bowles, like, let's say, like the pass rush, I'm just going to say, I'm not a fan of George Edwards. Don't think he's a good coach.
Yeah.
Got fired in Dallas and they brought him here. And Todd Bowles thinks this guy is just a guru at outside linebacker. And I don't see it. I just don't. Not a fan of his coaching style. Haven't seen in any real jump in any of the outside linebackers in terms of their pass rush. I think, Diaby, I don't want to say he's regressed, but I don't think he's gotten better from last year. He's gotten better against the run. I think he plays the run exceptionally well. But in terms of his pass rush moves, don't see it. Still stuck at 2 sacks. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, again, maybe he's just, a lost cause.
Right.
Anthony Nelson is what he is. Chris Braswell, I just don't see the development there. And I think Braswell has some potential. I think he's got some talent. So if you want to get rid of George Edwards, you might have to fire Todd Bowles, right? I think Casey Rogers has done a pretty good job with the defensive tackles, but is Kalijah Kancey is he reaching his full potential? Should he be more dominant than he is? Kevin Ross with the cornerbacks coach, Zion McCollum has developed into a shutdown corner. How much of that is Kevin Ross? How much of that is Zion just being the best athlete to come out of the draft at the cornerback position, maybe since Deion Sanders? And he had 15 interceptions at Sam Houston State. He's kind of a natural ball hawk, and maybe it just took him a little while and experience to go from Sam Houston State to the NFL, right? And you look at Kevin Ross and Todd Bowles, these guys played together at Temple, right? Is Todd Bowles going to fire Kevin Ross? Probably not. Nick Rapone, the safeties coach. Jordan Whitehead, I have no idea what happened to Jordan Whitehead. Like, you talk about regressed. He's playing awful football. Like, at times they're playing with 10 on the field, and he's out there as the number 11th guy, and he's just not making any impact whatsoever. And I don't know what the hell is wrong. Nick Rapone's 68 years old. Okay. And is the game passing him by? Is his message getting lost on just due to the fact that Whitehead and Winfield have been around him so long? I don't know. Nick Rapone was Todd Bowles' position coach at Temple. He was the safeties coach when Todd was the safety at Temple. Is Todd Bowles going to fire Nick Rapone? No, he's not. So when you have these guys, Ross and Rapone and, Casey Rogers, who's Todd's best friend, and George Edwards, who, again, I'm going to say it, I don't think he's a good coach, but Todd Bowles is not going to get rid of him. He disagrees with me. So if you need better coaches to get results from your players and have them reach new levels of their own game, how is that going to happen without firing Todd Bowles at the end of the season if this team underachieves and doesn't make the playoffs? That's the real question, and I don't have the answer right now. And it's 4-5, and I know it might seem premature to talk about this stuff, but y'all are wondering what's wrong with the defense, and I'm trying to tell you, there's a pretty good amount of this that's on coaching, and I've one of the coaches who's actually doing a very good job on defense, maybe the only one, Rashad Johnson, the nickel corners coach. Tyke Smith has become a hell of a player very quickly. A lot of that's Tyke. He's a smart player, comes from a great program at Georgia. But Rashad Johnson can coach. I remember watching him a lot. He is my type of coach, hands-on, young, energetic, and I think there's something to that. You look at the offensive coaches on the staff, with the exception of Skip Pete, they're young. They're in their 40s or 30s, right? Maybe they're more relatable. Maybe they've got more energy. Maybe they've got more new ideas and they've been around, newer, fresher schemes and techniques. I don't know. Kevin Carberry has taken essentially either the same or you can almost say a little bit less than what they had last year along the offensive line. And he's made it way better than Harold Goodwin and Joe Gilbert ever made it. And that's even when they had 3 Pro Bowlers and Ryan Jensen, Ali Marpet, and Tristan Wirfs. Kevin Carberry can coach. He can coach his ass off. Ryan Pacucci can coach. He can coach his ass off. They need something on the defensive side because there's just too many miscommunications, too many coverage busts, too much poor technique, too much, hey, day one installs, right? That's just not getting conveyed to these players. And the players have some responsibility too. But man, this coaching staff, it's night and day. One side is doing their job and doing it really well, despite not having a lot of weapons. The other side, despite having a lot of first and second round draft picks and high money guys, is not.
I think another assistant coach that deserves a shout out on the offensive side is Justin Peele, the tight ends coach.
Yes.
I mean, look what Kate Otten is doing this year. But yeah, that's what makes it tough for the defensive side is where is that spark going to come from? Where is that momentum necessarily coming from? Is the message too old? And, we hear Bowles every week talk about, we played well. We just missed like one play or two.
Right.
Well, that seems to be a common theme week in and week out. So this team is very talented, and there's been a lot of great individual performances. I mean, Bowles even said a couple of minutes ago that this was the best game he's ever seen from Vita Vea, since he's been in Tampa. Kalijah Kancey, I think it's an interesting case because, he missed so much of the season to begin with. I don't know. Some players, it takes a little bit more time to really get into the flow and get into the rhythm of things. So hopefully Kalijah Kancey has really found his footing. I'm talking about this season specifically. Has finally found his footing and can be that disruptive guy that he was yesterday. But across the board, there's just a little thing here, a little thing there. And you want to go back to coaching as well. You talked about Zion McCollum. Yeah, Zion is looking great in one department. But then if you want to credit the coaching for that, you also have to blame some of the coaching for, not getting Tyreek Funderburk or Josh Hayes, ready for the game itself. And, it's not all on the coaches. Antoine Winfield Jr. probably should have made a play on DeAndre Hopkins on that deep ball down the field. Winfield also could have had that interception late in the game as the Chiefs got the ball back with a couple of seconds left. So everyone needs to be held accountable. But when you look at the talent that team has, it feels like that talent can be harnessed and work into something good. I mean, we're seeing that on the offensive side. Something is just a little off on the defensive side, and it seems like it's more the coaches than the players currently at the moment. Well,
yeah, or at the very least, we have to include the coaches in it. It's one thing to sit there and pick on the players, which we do. We sit there and point out. We can point out Josh Hayes. We pointed out KJ Britt. Plenty. We can point out mistakes on the offensive side. We were on Cody Mauch's case for quite a while till he kind of came around. We can do that all day long, and that's warranted in a lot of cases. But at the same time, too, these coaches have a responsibility to get these players ready to play and to take good players and level them up to very good players or maybe even great players. And average players, into above average players, right? That's the job of a coach. It's to install the game plan, but it's also to work on the technique and have these players level up. Player development. And you look at what the offensive side has done with getting Ryan Miller ready to play, right? A practice squad wide receiver, to come in and block his ass off and make plays.
At the game-tying touchdown.
Yeah, Raheem Jarrett, Sean Tucker, right? The development from last year to this year. You look at that and you can see some obvious signs of these coaches on the offensive side doing their job and getting these players developed. And you look at guys like Jordan Whitehead and Yaya Diaby and Antoine Winfield Jr., some of these guys that are big names that have performed in the past. And why are they regressing? Why are they plateauing if you're Yaya Diaby, right? So that's where coaching has a part. It's not just the players. It's these coaches have a responsibility to get these guys to perform, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have coaches. Otherwise, you just have players and no coaches. But that's just it. So, that's the soapbox for today. We'll take on some of these super chats, though. We got some questions here from some folks and some comments.
Yeah, well, starting off with Michael Wags. Thank you, Michael, for the $4.99 super chat. Says, can't make the live show, but shout out Ryan Miller. As a Furman grad myself, it was cool to see a Paladin get into the end zone. Should have gone for 2. Yeah, Ryan Miller's had some flashes this season. He had the big catch and run a couple of weeks ago where he was wide open, and then had the touchdown, of course, to tie it up against the Chiefs last night. So, just talking about making the most of an opportunity. We are all pretty high on Cody Thompson, but Ryan Miller was a guy that was able to at least scratch and claw and make his way onto the practice squad. And, injuries happen. Unfortunately, they're a part of the game, and he's gone in and he's at least provided something for the Bucs. I mean, no one's expecting him to, be the leader in receiving yards and touchdowns week in and week out. But hey, he's contributing, and that's really all you can ask for.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And again, that speaks to the development, right? Brian McClendon getting him ready to play, and and Jalen McMillan. I'm telling you, he's got to grow up. He's got to grow up. I mean, there's some. I don't want to say a lot, but there are some people that not happy about his decision to opt out last night and feel like he couldn't go, and with the hamstring. Sterling Shepard had a hamstring injury, and he went out there and did the end arounds, caught the ball, ran the routes, blocked, did everything he could to help his team. And I think this is kind of a maturation thing with Jalen McMillan. It's disappointing is that they were really counting on him, not just last night, but this year. And he really has not proven to be that guy just yet. But, it's early. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, a long way to go in his career. Hopefully he just takes it as a learning lesson because, he was drafted with the idea that he's going to be the future of this team. And not currently the present, the way that the season's going, but it doesn't mean to give up on him, especially with him being a third-round pick. Thanks to Bucs Basement for this $5 super chat. Says, when Fitzpatrick says Bowles isn't going for 2 before they score the touchdown, and Andy Reid postgame says he wasn't surprised, they know Bowles has no biscuit. Of course, talking about no risk it, no biscuit. The famous mantra from Bruce Arians. And Todd Bowles is a conservative guy when it comes to on the field decisions. And most of the time that has come back to bite him and the Buccaneers overall. And then when he does get aggressive, it's with the fake punt that doesn't work. And so it's a little bit of damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I just think in this situation, your opponent, Patrick Mahomes. Time and time again, he does crazy things late in games, in overtime. Anytime the game is on the line, he rises to the occasion. So why give him an extra opportunity if it came down to that? You have the game right there. It's 2 yards. I don't care how much of the pouring rain it was going on. You're the road team. You got to go for 2 in that situation.
Yeah, I'm dropping my latest 2-point conversion column, which just finished up. That's my post-game column. It's titled, Todd Bowles is coaching himself out of a job. Todd Bowles essentially took the game and the ball out of his $100 million quarterback's hands and said, nope, my defense, which has been on the field for 21 more plays than the offense, and out of the last 21 minutes of regulation has been on the field for over 15 minutes of that. Todd didn't say that they were gassed. I asked him that in the press conference. I think they were. I think that showed in the in overtime. They just marched right down the field, just couldn't get off the field, couldn't get the stop. They were 12 of 18 on third downs. I just didn't see the logic in that. They should have gone for the 2-point conversion. I think if you lose, at least you man up and say, hey, we trusted Baker Mayfield and Liam Coen. They were getting the job done tonight, and it just didn't happen. But
yeah, and I know some people.
I think that's a more heroic and smarter way to lose than what ultimately happened.
Yeah, you're going out at least giving your chance to win right there in the moment. And, there were some people on social media today being like, well, if they went for it and didn't get it, you'd be criticizing Bowles for, not playing for overtime.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the case. I mean, some people probably would, but, Josh Capo and I were on the Pewter Game Day stream last night saying, go for 2 if they score, go for 2. And they did
the same thing.
Because the reasoning and the ideology made sense for why they would go for it in that situation versus what ended up happening. Bowles may not have said that the defense was tired, but I know one thing that definitely would help them out a lot, and that's if they were able to sneak in a Celsius energy drink before they got into that overtime. And of course, Celsius is the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. So many great flavors of Celsius, like the Arctic Vibe, which is my personal favorite. You also see on the screen there the sparkling watermelon lemonade. So if you need to know where to find a Celsius energy drink, head on over to the Celsius store locator, punch in your address, and it'll tell you the closest place where you can pick one up. Might be a Walmart, a 7-Eleven, health and fitness store, a Stop and Shop, or your bodega.
Bodega.
And after you keep going to your bodega and you love Celsius and you want more, you can purchase it in bulk over on Amazon with the subscribe and save. I'd recommend the variety pack because you heard me talk about all the fantastic flavors of Celsius. And you can have it sent to your place of residence whenever you want. You're in charge. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. Let's keep these super chats rolling in. Thank you very much, everybody, for your participation. I believe we are on Revfish. Thank you so much for this $4.99 super chat. Says, I truly don't get the mindset of not going for the win against the undefeated Super Bowl champs on the road. It was one play. Hats off to the players. Bowles let them down. And that's another thing. Like, Baker, I think traditionally has stepped his game up in big moments. I mean, you look at that playoff game against the Eagles last year, played really well. I mean, how about that last drive? Cutting down the field against the Chiefs and making some throws.
A minute and 20 seconds,
Shepard
something
stepping
like that.
up.
Yeah,
I mean, exactly. It took a minute 19 overall to go 71 yards.
And you know what? Let's give Baker some props, right? Because we've been on his case a little bit for throwing those interceptions. He had to play a perfect game. We talked about it last Wednesday on the preview show, Matt. We talked about it in the Pewter pregame show. I'm sure you mentioned it with Josh on the Pewter Game Day show. This was a game where Baker Mayfield, if they were going to have a chance to win, he had to play turnover-free football. And he did. He had one play, one throw that was a, ooh, yikes, But other than that, I thought he was on point. I thought he didn't force things. He didn't look like he was trying too hard. He was throwing to the open guy. I thought he was very well within himself and executed the game plan exceptionally well without having Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan. Oh, and by the way, going up against the Steve Spagnuolo defense, which was top 5 in total offense and in scoring defense. So I should say total yards and scoring defense. So I mean, I'm really proud of Baker for the way he played. And I would have loved to have seen him have an opportunity to get that 2-point conversion and then make Patrick Mahomes drive down the length of the field and get a field goal, which might not have, who knows.
It was a very Baker Mayfield-esque game. Made a lot of throws, showed a lot of toughness. I thought he moved around in the pocket really well.
I did too.
Avoided some sacks. Overall, I think the offensive line did a great job. Again, considering, yes, it was raining. I still disagree with what Bowles had to say about it. It rained even more down at the goal line. But, Chiefs defense in Arrowhead, not an easy task for anyone, even if the Bucs were fully healthy on offense, which they were not. So, Baker deserves a lot of credit. People are going to forget that he drove them down the field to, tie the game up before they lost in overtime. Yeah. Really, outside of the one dropped interception, the only mistake he made was he lost the coin toss. And he looked miserable after that as well.
I'll tell you, one guy who was not miserable last night, who's having a lot of fun out there, was Vita Vea. Let's give this guy some props. 10 tackles, career high, 10 tackles and 2 sacks. Todd Bowles was correct in saying it was the best game he's ever seen Vita Vea play, and it was. And I think he rubbed off a little bit on Kalijah Cansey, who also had 2 sacks in the game. Yeah. But we're going to be talking Bucs 49ers preview tomorrow. That's right. Tomorrow's already Wednesday. This week is flying by. That's what happens when you have Monday Night Football. So tomorrow, 4 o'clock, Bucs 49ers preview. Matt, this is we're kind of already at must-win, game talk here. I mean, I think they're going to be 4-6. I wrote about that on my 2-point conversion. It's not like this team can't do it. It's a much favorable stretch down the stretch schedule-wise in terms of win-loss opponents. But, listen, we see upsets all the time in the NFL on any given Sunday. Yeah. And one of the things I wrote about my 2-point conversion is I think Tampa Bay is going to stub its toe twice down the stretch and probably lose out there against a good Chargers team in LA. I think that's the one people are thinking like, oh, okay, that might be a loss. I think they're going to have another one of those head-scratching Todd Bowles, what are you doing kind of losses. It just seems to be the MO of this regime. I don't know why, but
we'll see what happens. Seems like the Raiders, that might be a type of game where Gardner Minshew just says, screw it, I'm going to be like my college version of Gardner Minshew and let it sling around. But we'll cross that bridge when they get to it. Because who knows? I mean, the fact that it is a home game does help to a degree.
Yeah.
Thank you to Mopar Buck for this 1999 super chat, who says Jason Light has failed a lot on the defensive side of the ball. We have talent, but where's the dogs? It's the reason our depth is bad. This is players and coaches and missed draft picks.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, Jason Light, listen, Joe Tryon-Schwenka is not him, right? Is not a guy worthy of a first-round pick in hindsight for sure. Serviceable starter. He's a guy that you're drafting a guy to replace. And they did. They drafted Yaya Diaby to kind of replace JTS. And all of a sudden, Shaq Barrett, fell off a cliff in terms of his production with the not coming back fully from the Achilles and his age, right? So then, all right, fine, they're drafting Chris Braswell to replace him. I'm just saying right now, and I've had 2 Celsius today. This is my second one, cherry cola, very good flavor, sparkling cherry cola. So maybe I'm a little amped up. Not a fan of George Edwards. I would love to see in a parallel universe over the past 2 years, if a better outside linebackers coach, how far along Chris Braswell would be and how far along Yaya Diaby would be. Because I still think those guys have the physical talent to get it done. Diaby's obviously a lot further ahead, but I'm just not sold. So yes, you can sit there and criticize Logan Hall. Sure. I'll give you that. I'll give you JTS. I'm still hanging on to hope that Cansey, Diaby, and Braswell, the younger guys, can become something with better coaching. I've seen it. I know what a good defensive line coach looks like. I was here for every minute of the Rod Marinelli tenure. I was here for every minute of the Joe Cullen tenure. Those 2 guys can coach defensive line. They can coach pass rush, right? Those were my idols when I became a Pop Warner defensive line coach, right? And I borrowed some of their stuff and literally had conversations with them about how you have to take players, whether they're little kids or high schoolers or college or pro guys, and make them pass rushers, make them defensive linemen that attack the line of scrimmage. And I'm just not a fan of necessarily Casey Rogers and especially George Edwards. Sorry. So yeah. Logan Hall, JTS, I'll give you those. But you look at some of the other draft picks that this team has made. Tyke Smith's a hell of a player, man. That's a Jason Light draft pick.
Looks great. Bucky Irving looks great. We got to remember, like Rashad White when he was drafted, what he's doing for
Zion McCollum.
Zion McCollum, exactly. So when things are going bad, it's easier to pinpoint like, okay, that was a mistake. That was a mistake. And Light has had his mistakes throughout his tenure as a Bucs general manager. But I think it's important as well to look at the big picture. You want to talk about the corner situation? All right, well, Jamel Dean got hurt and your backup got injured for the rest of the season in the first game of the season.
That's right.
That was not the plan to have Tyreek Funderburk and Josh Hayes. If you want to look at the linebacker situation, let's remember, Savase Den is out for the year. That was a big blow. If you want to look back on it and say, well, maybe they should have in the offseason, signed a veteran inside linebacker for cheap that you kind of feel better about putting in a situation like that. Sure, I understand. And it makes me very curious. And I don't want to look too far ahead because I still believe, hey, let the season play out. Maybe the Bucs can go on a run after the bye. But I am curious with this offseason, because let's remember, last offseason, it was all about re-signing Baker, Mike, everybody else in between that they did.
Yeah.
Their one big signing that wasn't a re-signing was Jordan Whitehead, which it kind of was a re-signing because he's already been on the team. Because of the way the last couple of off seasons have gone, where the Bucs didn't have any money because of the Brady tax to last year, I think this year the Bucs don't have to go crazy spending on all these new different pieces, but I would like to see Tampa Bay go out and say, okay, we have a problem here, and we're not just going to address it in the draft and wait and hope these guys develop. I would like them to make one or two decent-sized free agent signings to just completely fill an issue that's on this team right now. And maybe they'll do it because they only got to worry about Chris Godwin.
That's right.
And a couple other people this
offseason.
No,
you're right. I think very well said. I agree with everything you said. To Realtor David Sussman, we appreciate you being a Pewter Report TV channel member, first of all. And we don't have to agree on everything. That's the fun part about this. We're having a conversation. David says, yesterday SR said Bowles had a coward call, but he never said Light is a coward for being too afraid to sign free agents in positions of need. We have massive holes, and they want Bowles to do what? Well, you have to go back and look at free agency last year. Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Antoine Winfield Jr., Chase McLaughlin, Levante David, Tristan Wirfs, right? They only have X amount of money. Do you want to go out and sign other players? Or do you want to use most of the cap money that you have on re-signing your best players, your Pro Bowl players, et cetera? That was the decision. They didn't have a lot of money to go out and get other guys. And you look, and Jason Light has done a very good job in the past of getting some value free agents that have hit. Not every free agent's going to hit. Not every draft pick's going to hit. But $5 million on a one-year prove-it deal for Shaq Barrett worked out pretty well. 1 year, $4 million deal for Baker Mayfield worked out pretty well, right? So I think if you look at the totality of what's happening, we can nitpick, like you said, Matt. We can nitpick and say, good, bad, bust, hit, all that stuff. We can play the tit for tat game with this. The one thing I will say too is Jason Light does do a reasonable good job of working with his coaches. And if you don't think that Logan Hall was also a Todd Bowles draft pick, that Kalijah Kancey was also a Todd Bowles draft pick, that Zion McCollum was also a Todd Bowles draft pick, that Todd Bowles didn't have any say-so coming off a Super Bowl on Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, he's in on it too. He was the defensive coordinator at the time. And Todd, just like Jason, gets credit for the hits and also for the misses. It's a joint thing. It's not just Jason Light sitting up on the throne saying, I'm the king, I'll pick the players, and you coach him. He wants input from the coaches, and it's a collective effort, and at the end of the day, it's Jason's call, but Todd Bowles is signing off on these guys as well, on the defensive side especially.
Yeah, and he's been able to build a roster that has made the playoffs since 2020. So when you're making the postseason every year, I don't know, it's difficult to be like, well, you guys are terrible for this. Like, yeah, some things are going to go wrong. It happens across the league. Like, only one team can win the championship. So, I don't really think Light is the issue, in my opinion. Thanks to Spinks for the $10 super chat. Says, I agree that the coaching sucks. If Bowles is fired, does Liam have enough experience to fix/replace all of those coaches? Or do we need to hire a veteran like Bill Belichick?
I don't know that the Glazers would want to go with a 70-plus-year-old coach, just for continuity's sake. You want to build
he's youthful now, considering his dating life. But,
no kidding, right? Well said, Matt. I think that the Glazers, there's other guys that you could bring in terms of veterans, right? Mike Vrabel's got playoff experience, right? He's a candidate that's out there as well that has some ties to Jason Light. They were both in the Patriots organization. Does Liam Coen have enough to be a head coach? I don't know. He's smart. He's smart, and he knows players. He knows who can play and who can't, right? and he doesn't pull punches. He's very accountable. Like, man, I was kind of blown away at last Thursday's press conference. We touched on it a little bit, I think, last night, but it's like he comes out and he's prompted about Sean Tucker. He's prompted about this guy. And he just kind of like goes on a rant about himself and says, yeah, I learned a lot. I made a mistake here. We should have given the guys one more carry. We should have used him here. Fully accountable, fully aware, self-aware, and also has the intelligence to figure it out and not make mistakes.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 games with 24 points. It's one thing to do it against the Falcons defense, not as good as the Chiefs, but to get 24 points again without even having McMillan now, I mean, this guy's pretty special. He has kind of an it factor to it that I don't even think Dave Canales had. So you don't know until you give somebody a chance. But all I know is if I'm the Glazers, not even Jason Light, if I'm the Glazers, I don't want Liam Coen getting out of the building. So I'll do whatever it takes to keep him.
He's intelligent, but I'm also a big fan of his intensity because they even showed him on the sideline a little bit yesterday. And Todd Bowles is very stoic, and that's what he does. But Coen, you see him like kind of animated. He's kind of being like, what the F? And he's not doing it in a way where he's like screaming at the players or yelling at somebody. He's not trying to like get under their skin. He just wants to win as much as the players do, which I really respect. The last thing I want to say is, and you're right, it is one of those things you don't really know until he's the head coach because on the one hand, it's like, okay, well, he's a great play caller. We've seen that.
Right.
That's a plus. I think in today's day and age, most of the time you need an offensive guy to be your head coach because you don't want to run into what Tampa Bay has ran into, which is great offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Bam, he's off and having a head coaching job now.
Right.
But I do wonder a little bit, like, how do we know that Liam Cohen's not going to be like a Dirk Cutter situation or even a Raheem Morris where it's like, hey, you got this young guy. We want to put him as the head coach. And then it doesn't work out. One of those things, there's not really an answer until you see it.
That's right.
But there's a lot to like about Liam Coen, for sure.
I agree. I agree. Is he the next Shanahan, the next McVay, or is he the next Mike McDaniel, right? You don't know. You just don't know.
Right.
Got to give him a shot and see.
Thank you to Timothy Fitzgerald for this $2 super chat. Says, Matt's right. Oklahoma Baker's back, but so is his Oklahoma defense. That is pretty damn funny.
Yeah, that is good.
Sadly true.
Yeah. Appreciate that very much.
Oh, thank you to Mopar Buck for another 1999 super chat. We really appreciate that.
Yes.
Says, we're behind the 8 ball now with all these missed picks. We can't free agent our way to a Super Bowl, then ignore all the bad draft picks. Then you couple that with an under-average head coach whose claim to fame is blitzing. Let's be honest here.
Yeah. Again, here's the thing with draft picks, right? And again, some of these guys are not going to hit, right? I think we're in year 5 of JTS. He is what he is, right? I think you could even take the best pass rush coach and he's just going to say, I can't get anything more out of this guy. He is what he is, right? Sometimes you reach the end of the road, you reach the end of the rope with the player. I get that. But look at Cade Otton. Like I'll be the first to admit, I was down on Cade Otton. I've talked about it on the podcast. Yeah. I've written about it. I think Cade Otton is just an average guy. He's not tight end one. They need somebody more special at tight end. And he's not dynamic. He's not going to get the massive chunk plays down the field that a faster tight end like a Laporta or a Kittle or a Kelsey, maybe more in his youth would get. I don't think we're going to see like a 35, 45-yard catch and run from Cade Otton, for example, right? He's not going to outrace guys. But he's better than I thought he was. Why? Because he's got better coaching this year from Justin Peele, and Josh Capo has been on my ass about, dude, he is becoming a better blocker. And I've been critical about that, and I'm going back and watching clips. I'm saying, hey, man, that Rachaad White touchdown, you go back and you look at Ryan Miller's block and you look at Cade Otton's block, sealing that edge on that Rachaad White touchdown last night. That was a thing of beauty. That you talk about perimeter blocking, boom, that was it. So that's what my point is I'm thinking, okay, it's a 4th round pick. Yeah, okay, Cade Otton, Cade Otton is showing up, and he's showing that he can be a real weapon in this offense. He just needed better coaching and more opportunities and time. Sometimes it takes time. And so that's why I'm not down on all these draft picks. I'm not going to bury Chris Braswell yet because we just haven't seen enough. He hasn't played enough. We'll see. We'll find out in time,
And I think it's one of those things, again, where if you look at the offense versus the defense, you want to talk about recent draft picks over the last 3 or 4 years, whatever.
Yeah.
Like Rachaad White, I think where he was taken, I think that's a hit. Kate Otten proving this year that
Yeah.
he's a hit. Graham
Bucky
Barton off
Irving.
to a pretty, Bucky Irving,
Yeah.
immediate hit.
Yeah.
Tyke Smith defensively, immediate hit. Zion McCollum a hit. Sure, you have the Brits and the Logan Halls and the JTS, but there's also a lot of positive hits that this team has had. So, just our way of thinking of it. Tyson C, thank you for the $1.99 super chat. Says, "What's a coaching joker?" Don't really know what you mean, but thank you for the $1.99 super chat.
Yeah, thank you.
Swift Wolf, thank you for this $10 super chat. Says, Baker and Bucs offense are ready now. Can they draft/trade enough in the offseason to rebuild a good enough defense? Resign Godwin and Evans again.
Well, Evans is on a contract, so that's good. Godwin, I think, will get another deal. I think maybe a little bit less than what he was hoping for and really playing towards because of his injury. There's a little bit of a risk there that I think the team wants to mitigate. They don't want to sit there and they're like, hey, Chris, we gave you coming off the torn ACL when you were younger. We gave you that 3-year, $20 million market deal. Maybe they do it again. I don't know. But Chris Godwin will be 29 in March. It's just a little bit different, scenario here with the dislocated ankle. I trust Chris, but for the team's sake, when will Chris Godwin be all the way back from this dislocated ankle? Is it going to take him a year to kind of get back? And then 2 years from now, he'll be that guy that he was this year. I don't know. There's going to be enough draft ammunition. There's going to be enough free agency money to add pieces. And I do think that if whatever happens, whether Todd Bowles here or not, I think 2025 is going to be a ramp it up, go for it, more aggressive season. I believe that. I think they're resetting kind of like their cap situation here. They still got to work off Ryan Jensen, Shaq Barrett, and all of that.
Right.
But I think that they're going to be more aggressive this year. Keep in mind, they had to throw out a crap ton of money. $100 million towards Baker, $42 million, whatever it was, towards Mike, right? Tristan Wirfs, mega money. Antoine Winfield Jr., highest paid defensive back in the league. Getting Chase McLaughlin back, paying Levante David more money than they did the previous year. They put out a ton of money in free agency. It just wasn't new players. It was keeping their best players.
And they had to keep the quarterback. Yes. Like, quarterback's the most important position in football. Like, how would you feel if the Bucs had a great defense but no quarterback right now? Yeah. And where they are and with their schedule, they're not going to be in the top 5 picking a quarterback. So, they had to go after Baker and Mike this offseason. And I think the defense, like I said, good individual pieces. They need to add some personnel. But I don't think it's a complete overhaul that they need to do to the defense, just upgrading certain positions. Thanks to SM7 for the $1.99 super chat. We really appreciate that. And a big thank you to Black Gold 1999 for this 1999 super chat, who says, do you think Warren Sapp would be a great defensive line coach?
Yeah, I love Warren personally. I mean, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask because I've got a history with Warren and I just have a soft spot in my heart for him. I know he's done a better job out in Colorado.
Yeah.
He has. He's done a better job out there. I saw that firsthand. Their pass rush is better than it was when K-State barely beat Colorado out there in Boulder. I've had conversations with Warren. I've been telling him for years, not that I was the reason that he got into coaching whatsoever. That was all him. But I was encouraging him. I'm like, dude, the game. It's not just the physical talent with Sapp. He has a tremendous football IQ, tremendous encyclopedia. He knows the greats. He knows the legends. He is well storied in the historical parts of football. He's got a lot to draw from. He was coached by Rod Marinelli, one of the best to do it. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I would like the vigor and the fire and the brimstone he would bring. I think you need that. I think you need a little bit of a nutso. You need a little bit of a psycho coaching your defensive line. You do. It's a position where you're trying to literally, legally, football term, murder the guy in front of you to get to the quarterback to murder him. And I'm saying that like in a very like tongue-in-cheek way,
not in a literal sense,
not in a literal sense. In a football terminology way, you got to kill the guy in front of you, and then you kill the quarterback. He was the QB killer. That was his nickname. So you need that type of mentality, and I really believe, if you had a chance to see George Edwards talk and Casey Rogers talk, they're very cerebral. They're very, high IQ guys.
Yeah, I think
That's
you need
fine.
that mix.
But
you need that mix,
yes,
like on the coaching staff.
you
And
do.
there's
You
a little too much of the cerebral,
I agree.
kind of chill vibe
Thinking
on
man's
the
football.
on the defensive side. And
Totally
Sapp
agree.
is, like you said, great IQ. He's been great, like breaking down film and stuff. He used to do it
No
on his
doubt.
social media. Now he's working with Colorado. And last year, Colorado, their biggest issue was the trenches, offensive and defensive. And I haven't watched every single Colorado game.
They're
I can't say I've intently watched them.
Yeah.
But they seem a lot better on that.
They're going bowling
line.
this year. Yeah.
Yeah, they are, for sure. Yeah, they've already improved on their wins and everything. Our MVP of today's show, Mopar Buck, thank you for another $19.99 super chat, says, so we're good at 5 to 7 round spots, LOL, but we're blowing our first few rounds, which should be impactful also. We're keeping the same talent year in and year out. Let's ban the band, LOL. Also, that Devin White pick hurt us bad, man.
It did, but you also won a Super Bowl with Devin. And
that's immediately what I thought too.
Yeah. So I don't know. To me, Devin White in 2019 and 2020 was different than he was from 2021 and on. He just was.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, they drafted the talent that Devin was, and he helped them win a Super Bowl. Mission accomplished. And they didn't compound a mistake by re-signing the guy. They made him play in his 5th-year option. They gave him a chance, right? Made him play in a contract year to prove it, and he didn't. So at the end of the day, it's one of those kind of things where the first half of Devin's tenure in Tampa worked out. He was the player that you wanted. He was that sideline to sideline playmaking guy, splash play guy, and he delivered. It helped win a Super Bowl. After that, the fame, the ego set in, and it just spiraled his career. And I don't know. And listen, trust me, Jason Light tried to reach him. Todd Bowles tried to reach him. Larry Foote tried to reach him. And sometimes, when a guy's in quicksand, you just can't reach him. And I think that's what happened. You look at the first round picks of just like go back to 2018. Vita Vea.
I just pulled that up too.
Yeah. Vita Vea is a hit, right? Devin White, we're going to say, is a partial hit. Tristan Wirfs, hit. Okay. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, miss. Didn't have a first round pick, but you can count Logan Hall as that first pick because he was the 33rd pick overall. Miss. Kalijah Kancey, I think right now is more hit than miss. Time will tell.
Yeah, injuries has been the biggest thing with him.
Yes. Yeah. And Graham Barton, I like what I've seen so far.
Yeah, it remains to be seen. Too early to be like, oh, he's a clear stud, but also he's not a bust. So,
Matt, you and I don't know offensive line play like Brandon Thorne does, friend of the program. Yeah. Brandon Thorne in the trench warfare, he is the offensive line guru on X on the internet. I trust his opinion. He is still very, very high on Graham Barton. He just needs time. He's learning a new position. Sometimes it's not, open the box and instant Pro Bowler like Ali Marpet was,
right?
And Tristan Wirfs was. They spoil you.
Oh yeah. We'll see. The development is important at every position, but something that the Bucs need to bank on a little bit. Thank you to Caleb Parker Maine for this $10 super chat. Calling a timeout on the 1 and not going for 2 was some horrible game management and decision. We should sign Shaq Barrett back and trade for Newsome. It's hard to defend Bowles at this point.
Yeah. Greg Newsome, the cornerback, has had a terrible year. I mean, you look at the Pro Football Focus grade. I think Josh Hayes has a higher Pro Football Focus grade right now than Newsome does. So they didn't make a trade, and he was not being considered. Shaq Barrett, I mean, all signs point to him enjoying retirement. And,
he said he would come back for the Bucs, but do you want to come back for a 4-5 team? I think Shaq would rather, if the Bucs were in the division race or it looked like they were going to win the division. Yeah, maybe. And also, I don't know Shaq, but I don't know what he's going to really provide at this point.
Yeah, I know. Listen, if Shaq were to come back to Tampa, I would hope he would be on the Bucs cruise because he's a hell of a nice guy. Buccaneer fans, if you haven't met Shaq Barrett, holy smokes, what an absolute treasure of a human being. Yeah. He would be a fun guy on the Tampa Bay Bucs cruise, but there's not Shaq Barrett on the cruise, but there's plenty of other current and former Buccaneer stars to enjoy.
We're on the Bucs cruise. Of course we're playing pool volleyball.
Hey, we on the Bucs cruise, of course. Anytime I say Tampa, they will say Bay. Tampa! Hey! Tampa! Hey! Tampa! Hey!
We're on the Bucs cruise. Of course, I've got my Super Bowl 37 hardware. What do you think?
We're on the Bucs cruise, and of course we had a pirate night. Arr! Arr!
Guys and gals, I'm telling you, you are going to regret it if you don't come on the Tampa Bay Bucks cruise. I've heard that from everybody because I haven't been on the first two, but we're going, the Pewter Report staff's going on the third annual Tampa Bay Bucks cruise because we've heard how much fun it is, and they've had so many people re-sign up for this year's cruise, people like Nathan Elliott, who is a big proponent of it here in the Pewter Report chat. So make sure you're on board too, March 7th through 10th, 2025. Now, if what you're thinking is, well, I'll wait till after the year and see, how the taxes are looking and what March is looking like, you got to book by December 1st. That's the deadline. You got to book. So we're less than a month away from the deadline to book. So the holidays are coming up. Maybe tell your significant other, hey, babe, I'm taking you on a cruise. We're going on the Bucks cruise so we can check out Fort Lauderdale, Bimini, Bahamas, have a good time, Key West. It's the place to be. Drinks, Wi-Fi, tips, all included. Yaya Diaby, Kalijah Cansey, Brad Johnson, Mike Allstott, Luke Gedeke, tons of former and current stars. Make sure that you sign up at TampaBayBucksCruise.com. Again, December 1st is the deadline. If you're thinking about going, cabins are going fast. I think the boat's about around 80% occupancy right now. Book your trip today. Don't wait.
That's right. Make sure you check it out. Going to be a great time. Thanks again to Mopar Buck 1999. Says
we're gonna have to take Mopar just for all these super chats.
Yeah. We're gonna get a cabin from Mopar. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for that. This other
Thank you.
1999 super chat. It says low bar 8-9 winnable division is the issue. Able to get into the party because you're the NFC South. It's low bar. Yes, we won the division, but man, who are we fooling? This whole division is building an 8-9 win Super Bowl team. Laughing, crying emoji with hand over the face. Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's a little bit of putting lipstick on a pig. The way that the Bucs have gotten into the playoffs the last 2 years, especially 2 seasons ago, and that's why we've said a lot. Bowles, the next step for him is to get double-digit wins because going 8-9 and 9-8 is not going to be sustainable over the years in the NFL. They got lucky, and it happens from time to time. But, the Falcons are on the rise.
Yeah.
Saints might be the Saints and the Panthers might be in a tough spot for the next couple of years still. But still, I mean, if Atlanta is coming to play with the win now team, the Bucs got to match it or else they'll be behind as well.
And I think Todd Bowles might be in some jeopardy, Matt, because you hate to say it, you look at this. There's 3 division games left where obviously the Bucs need to win those. They need to sweep the Panthers. They also need to beat the Saints with an interim head coach in Week 18 in Tampa, a place that for whatever reason, the Saints have played exceptionally well, and they play better in Tampa than they do against the Buccaneers in New Orleans. And so this is some real jeopardy here. These are games that, Todd Bowles cannot afford to lose to Dave Canales just from a posterity standpoint, a prestige standpoint. He cannot afford to lose to Dave Canales. Imagine with the fans how enraged they would be if they lost to the cellar dweller Carolina Panthers, right? Yeah. And then at the same time, Matt, you can't get all the way to Week 18, and maybe it's the difference between 8 wins and 9 or 9 wins and 10 if they've gotten that far, and just win and you're in the playoffs, and then lose to an interim head coach in New Orleans. You can't do that if you're Todd Bowles. Like you're going to get the pink slip on the way out of the stadium if that's the case. So these are games that, Todd Bowles, again, I think they're going to stub their toe aside from the Chargers game somewhere down the stretch. It cannot be against Dave Canales. We saw how that worked out for Dennis Allen and the Saints, and it can't be against the Saints in Week 18. Those are 3 games that Todd Bowles, if he wants to keep his job, he's got to win in addition to plenty others.
No, it's very, very true. And if he doesn't, then moves are going to be made. Let's get to this last super chat. Thank you to Tyson C with the $9.99 super chat. Says, getting off of Todd Bowles coaching, do you guys think that maybe the defensive players should have a players-only meeting to see if they can turn the defense around a little bit? Well, we spoke to Jordan Whitehead last week in the locker room, and he said that Levante David kind of called everyone together. I think they went out to dinner or something like that, or they all had a meal together to kind of figure out what's going on with the chemistry issues.
Yeah.
And, that was before this game against the Chiefs. The defense, I think, played a little bit better.
Yeah.
Good by any means, but like a little bit better compared to what we saw the previous week. So they've kind of already had that moment. I'm not sure what else they can really do.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think it goes back to something I've talked about before. I think I even did a Pewter Pulse about it. The missing ingredient is that dog on this defense. They need an ass kicker. They need somebody with some fire and brimstone, a Warren Sapp, JPP, Hardy Nickerson, and Ndamukong Suh type. And trust me, Jason Light knows that. These guys are becoming harder and harder to find. You got NIL money. Everyone's telling you how great you are. Sometimes these guys don't have the edge that they used to back in my day, where you had a lot of more badass Jack Lambert type players. They're just not as easy to find. But Jason Light, he traded for Jason Pierre-Paul, right? For that reason. He swapped out fan favorite, nice guy Gerald McCoy for Ndamukong Suh, a very unpopular move at the time. Remember that. But it helped them win a Super Bowl because he needed an edge. He needed another guy in the trenches to be that fierce guy that Suh was. And I just don't see that guy right now. And trust me, that's Jason Light knows that because he has found those guys before. You can have nice guys. Shaq Barrett, hell of a nice guy. Antoine Winfield Jr., hell of a nice guy, right? Levante, you can go. Zion McCollum, not going to find a nicer guy. You can win with some nice guys, but you have to have those in-house assassins that are going to do the dirty work, hold guys accountable, get in players' face. John Lynch, one of the nicest guys in the world, but he was a little afraid of Warren Sapp. Like they had a good chemistry. Warren held everybody accountable, including himself. They need that type of fire starter, and maybe it's a free agent. Maybe it comes in an offseason trade, like how it was with JPP for a third rounder back in 2018. Maybe they draft that next, Sapp-like presence in the draft next year, and he brings some edge to this defense. But they need it. Yaya Diaby, hell of a nice guy. Kalijah Kancey, nice guy.
Yeah.
You can have those guys if they're good players. Donnie Abraham, one of the nicest guys in the world. But you need some dogs. You need some edgy type of guys, especially on defense, and that's what's missing right now.
I think intensity is the word again. I use it when talking about Liam Coen, but defensively, there needs to be some intensity, and I'm not sure who brings it on this team right now.
Yep, exactly. Well, we know a couple of things. We're going to be bringing tomorrow's show for you, and that is our Bucs 49ers preview at 4:00. Make sure you check that out here on Pewter Report TV. And Friday, we're going to have our insider, Pewter Insider, will Todd Bowles get out coached again? That's right. It didn't get easier going from Andy Reid one game to Kyle Shanahan the next, and then we've got a couple of awesome shows coming up. Our Pewter pregame show on Sunday at 9:00 against the 49ers. Pewter game day at 1:00. It's going to be an interesting matchup for the 49ers, Matt. This is not a late game. This is a 1:00 game. They're going to be playing early morning football with their schedule adjustment from the West Coast to the East Coast. We'll see how it all works out. But one thing is for sure, you can find all of the Bucs content you need on pewterreport.com.
That's right. Also want to give a shout out and a big thank you to our Pewter Platinum members. Thank you to Scott Federico, Rathel Gordon, Noah Parr, Scotty J, Dave Anderson, and Eric McMillan. Thank you so much for your support. We could not do it without you. And of course, if you want to follow us on all of our social media, you find us on X, Facebook, and Instagram at Pewter Report. And our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment as well. That's going to do it for us on today's show. For Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you tomorrow back at 4 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.